story begins 2 days earlier. At an airsoft range, the sound of gunfire echoes across the field. Players move tactically through obstacles, calling out positions and taking shots. A mechanical voice rings out overhead. It announces the match will end in 30 seconds. Daisuke moves swiftly, firing at opponents with precision. As he does, a memory surfaces, the scene shifts, a quiet diner. Daisuke sits across from a close friend, the two sharing a meal. His friend smiles and says, "You're getting married, huh? Congratulations." He pauses, then chuckles softly. He continues, "From now on, I won't be able to freely spend the money I earn." He looks down at his drink for a moment, then adds, "But living for someone else isn't so bad either, right?" Daisuke listens silently. His friend looks back up at him and says, "You're a kind guy. Reliable too. You could find someone anytime." The scene snaps back, gunfire, movement, chaos. Daisuke reloads smoothly, his focus sharp. He thinks to himself, "And today I turn 40. He exhales lightly. He continues, "I'm probably past my prime already." Then he smirks faintly. He adds, "Spending all my time on survival games, and yet my heart still feels like I'm in my 20s. He pauses, then mutters, "Just kidding." From across the field, teammates shout. They call out, "Koga is overpowered as always." Another voice follows, "Nice one." Daisuke lowers his weapon slightly. He thinks to himself, "To live for someone else, huh?" He pauses, then adds, "Come to think of it, I've always just lived for myself." Suddenly, smoke floods the area, thick, blinding. Daisuke steps back in confusion. He says, "A smoke screen in a space like this." He looks around, his voice tightens. He says, "Wait, where am I?" He turns slowly. He whispers, "This isn't the airsoft field." A deafening roar shakes the ground. Daisuke freezes. He turns, and his eyes widen in shock. A massive griffin stands before him. He stumbles back and shouts, "What is that? A giant bird?" The creature slams its talons into the ground beside him. Debris explodes into the air. Then, a voice echoes through the space. It says, "Please fight to your heart's content." Daisuke looks around frantically. He says, "A voice. Is someone talking to me?" The voice speaks again. It says, "I have given you power. Use it well." Daisuke looks down at his weapon. It begins to glow. He checks the magazine. His eyes widen. He says, "These aren't pellets." He grips it tighter. He realizes this isn't an airsoft gun anymore. His mind races. He thinks to himself, the M4 carbine, one of the most widely used rifles in the world. He steadies his stance. He continues, chambered in 5.56mm rounds capable of burst fire. He narrows his eyes at the griffin. He thinks, "I've trained with firearms before, but will this even work on something that big?" He pauses, then resolves himself. He says, "No, I'll believe in its power." He raises the rifle and fires. A barrage of bullets tears through the air. Round after round strikes the griffin directly in the face. The creature recoils, then lets out a screech. Moments later, it turns and flees. Silence returns. Daisuke lowers the rifle slightly. He blinks in disbelief and says, "It ran away." Then, a woman appears before him, as if from nowhere. She smiles calmly and says, "That was splendid, O summoned one." She places a hand over her chest. She says, "My name is Crimin. I am an observer of this world." Daisuke stares at her, stunned. She continues, "This place is what you would call another world." Daisuke's expression stiffens. Crimin gestures lightly. She says, "Using the griffin from before, I have confirmed your abilities." She steps closer. She adds, "I have traveled across worlds, searching for individuals like you." Daisuke scratches his head nervously. He says, "Well, those fights were just survival games. It's not like I'm actually." Crimin interrupts him, firmly. She says, "You are mistaken." She looks directly into his eyes. She continues, "Your abilities are real." She steps closer. She adds, "Not just your skill, but your kindness, your nature to never abandon those in need." Daisuke blinks. He says, "That's oddly specific." Crimin turns slightly. Her voice grows serious. She says, "This world stands on the brink of destruction." She continues, "It will soon be consumed by chaos." She pauses, then adds, "I am merely an observer." She looks back at him. She says, "That is why I ask you, help those in need." She continues, if you do, this world may yet be saved. She nods slightly. She says, I believe you will succeed. Daisuke thinks for a moment. He rubs the back of his head. He says, helping people is fine, but I still have a job. Balancing both might be difficult. Krimen smiles. She raises her hand. And a portal opens. Inside it, Daisuke's own room can be seen. She says, you need not worry. She continues, I have connected this world to your closet. She adds, come and go as you please. Save the world at your own pace. Daisuke raises an eyebrow. He says, so, whenever I have time. He smirks slightly. He adds, that's a pretty flexible work schedule. Krimen tilts her head. She asks, what do you think, oh summoned one? Daisuke nods. He says, all right, with conditions like that I can manage. He adds, I'll do what I can. Krimen smiles. She says, in exchange, I will grant you special abilities. Daisuke looks confused. He says, special abilities. Krimen gestures to his weapon. She says, the tool you carry can become its real-world counterpart in this realm. Daisuke looks down at it. He says, so, I can turn my airsoft gun into a real firearm. Krimen nods, then she adds, and one more thing. She produces a small card. She says, give this to someone you hold dear. The scene shifts back to the present. Rena sits on the forest floor, catching her breath. She looks down at the card in her hand. Suddenly, it begins to glow. Her eyes widen. She says, the charm Daisuke gave me. A familiar voice echoes softly. Krimen's voice says, even across distance, this spell will guide you to the one it belongs to. Rena grips the card tightly. Her expression hardens with determination.